The drama surrounding Butterbean's monstrous knockouts is the stuff of boxing folklore, undeniable, unforgettable, and often unbelievable. There was a time when the sight of a bald, pudgy man waddling toward the ring might have drawn chuckles from the crowd that was before the bell rang, because once it did, everything changed. The laughter stopped, the audience held their breath, and giants drew muscle-clad titans fell one after another. The name Butterbean, once a curiosity, became a warning. Esch, better known by his unforgettable moniker, Butterbean, defied every visual stereotype of a prize. He didn't have the sculpted abs or the towering physique of his opponents. He wasn't built like a god. He was built like a tank. And when that tank got moving, it flattened everything in its path. While most of the fighters he faced came armed with bulging biceps and arrogance, Butterbean carried something far more dangerous: raw, uncompromising power, and a total disregard for the expected script. He was not the hero with a cape. He was the storm no one saw coming. Take his bout against Paul Springer. The man stood opposite Butterbean, looking like he'd been chiseled from granite, a gym-hardened monument of muscle and testosterone. But in the ring, aesthetics meant nothing. Within seconds of the bell, Butterbean unleashed a barrage so violent and immediate, Springer was whisked off to dreamland. He wasn't the first to underestimate the big man, and he certainly wouldn't be the last. Butterbean had a way of turning a smug smirk into a 1,000-yard stare faster than any fighter in his era. As the new millennium approached, Butterbean's opponents grew even larger and cockier. George Lindbergher, another swollen symbol of weight-room superiority, tried to stand tall, but his confidence was crushed almost instantly when Butterbean barreled into him with all the subtlety of a freight train. The moment was brief, brutal, and exact. One punch like a sledgehammer dipped in grease slammed home, and Lindbergher hit the canvas in a heap. It was less of a fight and more of a demolition. Jackie Beard, a man whose very name sounded like it belonged in a roster of comic book villains, posed a new threat. Towering and confident, Beard walked into the ring cloaked in arrogance. He taunted Butterbean, mocking his size and seemingly ignoring the history lesson laid bare by those who had fallen before. But Eric wasn't interested in trading insults. He waited, and then he struck with chilling precision. The very mockery Beard had spewed moments earlier was swallowed in silence as Butterbean detonated a right hand that sent the cocky giant crumbling like a building with its foundation pulled out. The lesson: disrespect the bean, and you don't just lose the fight too, lose face, pride, and consciousness. It's easy to forget just how often Butterbean was put in the underdog role. In one of his early matches, he faced off against another heavily muscled brute, someone who looked like he'd been bred in a lab for violence. The difference: while the giant flexed, Butterbean feasted, figuratively, and perhaps a little literally. As soon as the bell sounded, he charged forward like a man late for dinner. But when his opponent, Doug Norris, threw a cheap shot after the bell, the match turned personal. Butterbean, enraged but controlled, responded not with words, but with fists, windmill punches that looked crude but landed like anvils. The crowd erupted as Norris collapsed, victim to his own unsportsmanlike arrogance. Eric didn't just fight with power, he fought with principle. Then came Jonathan Whitfield, tall, strong, and deceptively fast. Whitfield thought his reach and footwork would carry him to victory. He was wrong. Butterbean smeared him across the ring, punch by thunderous punch. The bout was over quickly, violently. It was like watching someone try to stop a train with a toothpick. Butterbean painted the canvas with the memory of Whitfield, another name added to the growing list of giants who'd underestimated the chubby warrior from Alabama. But boxing wasn't enough. The hunger, the need to prove that power and will could transcend the ring drove Eric to step into the MMA cage. In 2007, Butterbean faced James Thompson, a mutant of a man with a terrifying track record and a face sculpted by years of punishment. But intimidation doesn't work on a man who only fears two things: an empty fridge and a working treadmill. Thompson tried to flex and stare him down, but Butterbean wasn't interested in theatrics. He exploded at the bell with the same fury that had humbled so many before, launching a relentless assault that overwhelmed the so-called monster. The MMA crowd, used to technique and tap-outs, instead witnessed a mauling. And then, of course, there was Patrick Graham. Broad, ripped, and with a sneer that could curdle milk, Graham looked like he was built to end Butterbean's reign. Instead, he became a victim of it. Within seconds, Butterbean was raining down fists like they were judgments from on high. Each punch reverberated through the arena. Every swing felt like it could crack concrete. Graham was sent through the ropes by a body punch that looked like it came from a man possessed. Butterbean, always underestimated, once again made a statement. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a phenomenon. That's the thing about Eric Esch. While other fighters chased fame with trash talk and stylized entrances, Butterbean let his fists do the talking. He was a folk hero in gloves, a juggernaut in jockey shorts. His fights didn't drag on, they exploded, offering a kind of violent poetry that captivated audiences and humiliated opponents. He wasn't there to dance. He was there to destroy. What makes Butterbean's story even more compelling is what he represented: a refutation of the status quo. While promoters and critics pushed for six-packs and highlight reels, Eric gave fans grit, authenticity, and chaos. There was no pretense to him, no act, just one terrifying truth. If you stepped into that ring with Butterbean, you better be ready to wake up not knowing what day it is. Eric Esch's reign may be a thing of the past, but the echoes of his punches still resonate. He didn't win every fight, but when he did, it wasn't subtle. It was destructive, final, and unforgettable. He dismantled the idea that boxing was only for the lean, the polished, the athletic-looking. He proved that sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one everyone's laughing at him till he hits you. So now, it's your turn. What do you think made Butterbean so effective in the ring? Was it sheer power, unshakable confidence, or something else entirely? Could a fighter like him rise again in today's hyper-stylized fight scene? Let us know in the comments, and if this knockout history lesson hit the spot, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more tales from the brutal, bizarre, and beautiful world of combat sports.